In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to rationalize the denominator for a number of problems. Here's our first problem. This is the simplest of the problems that we're going to do. If you just have a single square root in the bottom, you just multiply the top and the bottom by that square root. So multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3. 1 times square root of 3 is just square root of 3. Square root of 3 times square root of 3. A square root times itself is just going to be that number without the square root, so it's just going to be 3. So square root of 3 over 3. Here's our next problem. On this one, you want to multiply by the conjugate. The conjugate is going to be exactly the same as this one, except instead of a minus, you're going to have a plus. So it's going to be 1 plus root 2. So we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by that. Then from here, you just multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times root 2 is root 2. And when you multiply by the conjugate, the denominator, when you multiply those together, it's going to be in this form here, a squared minus b squared. So if you FOIL that, the middle two terms are going to cancel, and you're just going to be left with the two end terms, which are a squared minus b squared. So you can just multiply 1 times 1, that's 1, and negative root 2 times positive root 2, it's just going to be negative 2. All right, from here, let's just simplify. 1 plus root 2 over 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. We can bring the negative up to the top. That's going to change the sign of everything inside. So negative 1 minus root 2. So again, on this problem, you want to multiply by the conjugate. You might think that the conjugate on this one would be 5 minus root 2, but you're going to leave the negative 5 as a negative. The only thing you're going to change is you're going to change that to a minus. So we're going to multiply by negative 5 minus root 2 over negative 5 minus root 2. So 1 times this is just going to be negative 5 minus root 2. Again, since we multiplied by the conjugate, if you multiply the two denominators together, it's going to be in this form, a squared minus b squared. So again, we can just multiply the first two terms together. Negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25, and root 2 times negative root 2 is going to be negative 2. Okay, so let's simplify. We get negative 5 minus root 2 all over 23. 25 minus 2 is 23. And you can factor a negative out of the top. And we can put the negative in front of the fraction. That's the preferred way to write it. It's not wrong to write it like this, but it looks better like this. This one has two square roots in the denominator, but we're still only going to change the sign of what's between the square roots. So we're going to multiply by square root of 2 plus square root of 3. Yeah, we're not going to change the sign of the square root of 3, square root of 2. So we're going to multiply by that. Multiply straight across. 5 times square root of 2 is 5 square root of 2 plus 5 times square root of 3, 5 square root of 3. Again, since we multiplied by the conjugate, our product of the denominators is going to be in this form. So you can just multiply the first two numbers together, the two a's. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2. Negative root 3 times root 3 is going to be negative 3. Okay, so let's simplify this. 5 square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 3 all over 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Bring the negative up to the top. I'm going to change the sign of everything in the numerator. Negative 1 times 5 root 2 is negative 5 root 2. Negative 1 times 5 root 3 is negative 5 root 3. You can also rationalize complex or imaginary numbers. For rationalizing these types, you just change the sign of the imaginary part. This one only has an imaginary part, so I'm just going to multiply by positive I over positive I. 8 times I is 8I. Negative I times I is negative I squared. Now I squared is equal to negative 1. So let's plug in for the I squared. negative 1. We just have 8I over the opposite of negative 1 is a positive 1, so you just have 8I over 1, or just 8I. Now again, for imaginary numbers, you only change the sign of the imaginary part. The real part's going to stay the same. So we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by negative 3 minus 2I over negative 3 minus 2I. So just multiply across. 4 times negative 3 equals negative 12. 4 times negative 2I is negative 8I. Again, since we multiplied by the conjugate, the product of the denominators is going to be in this form, a squared minus b squared. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. 2i times negative 2i is negative 4i squared. Again, I squared is equal to negative 1. Okay, so let's simplify and plug in negative 1 for I squared. Continue simplifying. Negative 12 minus 8I all over 9. And negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. So we get negative 12 minus 8I over 13. If we break this into real and imaginary parts, negative 12 thirteenths minus 8 over 13I.